Docket number 01313.
Number 13. Lucky for some.
I am Inkarnate, your Inquisitor General for the Mind's Eye, welcoming you back to the Mind's Eye Inquisition. On tap for tonight is a news network kicking up dirt and calling it smoke for the fire, in a desperate pitch for relevancy. So, as your lead inspector on this case, if you've heard it through the grapevine, it's my job to trim the hedges. Well, summer 2025 might be in the books, but there's plenty of coverage as well as controversy that yours truly wanted to cover. So I would like to start this with a mention of what I think is the biggest news, that Robert Englund, Freddy himself, the man of your dreams, is finally getting his star on the Walk of Fame. At long last, am I right? Some people would say that this is long overdue. Me, I'm some people. It's hard to believe that for as long as this man has had his legacy within not just horror, but cinema in general, that it's only now that this is taking place, and I, for one, couldn't be happier and prouder than him. I gained a newfound respect for him when I watched the documentary that was done for him. In fact, if you are interested in doing so, I did a watch party of this on all of my channels. And again, not just A Nightmare on Elm Street, because that obviously will be his biggest role and the one that he will go down for, the one that he is iconic for, but his entire body of work. This was someone who was theatrically trained, and it absolutely was my pleasure to have watched the documentary on him called Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story. And I don't want to diminish the impact of Freddy Krueger, because who could possibly do that? It's A Nightmare on Elm Street is my absolute favorite horror film, and Freddy Krueger is tied for my number one favorite movie monster of all time. But by all means, for those Freddy fans, for those Elm Street fans, for the fans of Robert Englund, I definitely encourage everyone to take a watch of that documentary, and please feel free to use my watch party for that documentary as the second screen experience. So, in addition to that, we have to keep in mind the other good news that this news will be, or this event will be dropping on this Halloween of 2025. So that's something really special. Now, I would have hoped that this would have taken place last year. Why? Because it was the 40th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Check out my watch party of said film. So, even though the news of this is 2 months old, for me, the timing couldn't be better, if for no other reason than 1 month ago yesterday, as a matter of fact, the A Nightmare on Elm Street 4K collection was announced that all 7 films will be coming out on 4K Blu-ray. That, to me, oh man. I was curious last year when just the original film came out on 4K. I'm saying to myself, this is a franchise that's 4 films. I'm sorry, that's several films, 7 of them, in fact, enough to fill 2 trilogies and then some. Why is this only coming out in a just the first film? And look, I'm glad that I did not get the original. I'm glad that I didn't get the original on that 4K disc. So now I can reserve my hard-earned dollars, as well as you, for this 4K Blu-ray special. I absolutely am so stoked about that. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. To me, it's something that these two bits of news, Robert Englund finally getting his Walk of Fame star, and the 4K collection of the entirety of the franchise, of course, minus Freddy vs. Jason and that god-awful reboot that no one will ever get a 4K Blu-ray of, because why would they? But to me, these two bits of news are great to hear and well received by the horror faithful. Now, and it's especially great for me because, man, if you know anything about me, not only am I a huge advocate for physical media, but I'm an HD snob and proud of it. Now, the Walk of Fame will occur, as you can see, on Halloween of this year. The 4K collection will debut on September 30th. So back-to-back months of great Halloween, of great Elm Street news. So yeah, I mean, what a time to be a fan. Dreams really do come true. And unfortunately for some, let's take a look at our next news item. No love for Jennifer Love Hewitt. Speaking of 2 months ago, I know what you did last summer. This, I don't know what the hell. It's not a sequel. I guess they're going with Legacy sequel. So the horror genre, once again, couldn't help itself and rolled the dice on another slasher requel, just to crap out and crap the bed Amber Heard style. Just nobody cared about this. And to me, I have always felt that the I Know What You Did Last Summer film, and I guess now franchise, since they did make a sequel to that, I've always felt that it was overrated. I always felt that this and many other teen horror movies that came out post-Scream, it was just riding that movie's coattails. And whereas something like Scream has some bit of fanfare to it, I Know What You Did Last Summer is one of those and always has been, in my eyes, one of those overrated horror films that came out at the right time, but doesn't really have any resonance to it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have anything that people gravitate to or will come back to enjoy and admire, because it really is just an empty slasher movie. There's really nothing to it. And they had to learn that lesson the hard way this past summer, because, hey, I hate to break it to you, it's not a classic at all. And they went to the well one too many times, and they, typical requel setup. They brought back older stars. I wasn't going to go see it because I just was not interested in it. But I'm sure they included all those other not just slasher tropes, but the rules of a requel. Like, no one cares, man. It doesn't resonate with anybody nowadays because there's nothing to gravitate to it. But that slasher trash ain't even why I am mentioning this news piece.
What do you think, we're in a horror movie?
You guys are right. I mean, if we were, they'd probably cast some dingbat like Jennifer Love Huge Tits to play me.
You could be so lucky. So, this is what I wanted to get to. So, you have Jennifer Love Hewitt on the red carpet, doing the media rounds to promote the movie, as one would expect. And I'm saying to myself that, hey, she doesn't look bad in my eyes. So, this was my impression of her. I think she looks great for her age. I think she looks great in that dress. Apparently, and I'm just saying to myself, And I'm saying to myself, okay, what could possibly be wrong with this? What possible drama or controversy can there be kicked up? And believe me, the dress itself, that's not even the reason why I'm bringing this up. For that, Jesus Christ. Just take a read of this. Like, I saw this and I'm saying to myself, honestly, is this necessary? And keep something in mind. Take a really hard, long look at this tweet. This is coming from a woman No guy would write this. If he did, he'd be canceled tomorrow. I couldn't believe when I read this, and I look at how many likes it got. I'm just saying how many retweets. I was blown away by this. And mind you, I have seen way more celebrities that are just obnoxious to look at, and they think that because they're overweight and tubby that they're confident or something. I couldn't believe this. And it's like, how insulting is this? Like, that was so out of pocket and unnecessary. So I'm saying to myself, someone needs to call in an expert. Do we have any curvy connoisseur on the scene? Oh, wait a minute.
Now, come on!
Let me handle this, bitch.
Now, allow me to explain. I am a licensed professional qualified to speak on such matters, and the only one. And I say that because I just happen to have a degree in thickonometry. I'm talking about thickums, no fatties. I mean, we got rules up in this piece.
Whoa, 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 whoa! 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 You know my policy regarding fatties.
So, like, again, I have to, she looks fine to me. Like, am I missing something? And I, for one, have always said, I likes my women curvy. So, fellas, I posed a question to you. Am I really the only one out here that's like... Trust and believe. If I had a girl like this, trust and believe you would know exactly what I did last summer and next summer and 2027.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
Soon. Next up is some sad bit of news. Layoffs at Blumhouse post Megan 3 flop. On the one hand, for me, this is bittersweet. First off, because a studio like Blumhouse has had this coming for quite some time. And I say that because they have put themselves in this position where they are not in the business of creating memorable, iconic monsters. No, they'll tell you that whatever crap that they cobble together is somehow, some way intended to be classic, a classic monster, a classic character, a great story, blah, blah, blah. They care about, all that they care about is box office and nothing else. And look, yes, these movies need to make money. You are not saying anything by saying that movies are in the industry to make money. You're not saying it. You're not making any grand statement. However, I continue to say it, and I've literally said it since episode 1 of my channel. It's outlandish to me that all of the classic films that we remember, that we grew up on back from the 80s and before, all of those movies were made on shoestring budgets, and Blumhouse loves talking about how they have micro budgets. Really? Yeah, your stupid corny buzzword. And they just focus, all that they concern themselves with is box office return. They don't, and just so that on the back end they can tell you that, oh, these movies are just as good as whatever films you find beloved. Remember how many times they were telling you that Insidious is the new Poltergeist? Word. So now we get to a movie like Megan, and it flops, and it flops hard. Now, I will say this. The studio absolutely deserves this failure, not the staff. That is unfortunate, that people had to lose their jobs over this. But Blumhouse has gotten away with turning the crank on their assembly line and feeding the masses product. Not experiences, not great films, not movie moments, not iconic characters, not memorable scenes, nothing. Just product. It is as cookie cutter as it gets. You do not see any auteurs come out of there. They don't make stars out of their characters. it's just rinse, wash, repeat. And it is only now that it has finally caught up to them. And I will say this again, good for them. Good for the higher ups. Unfortunate for the lower level employees. And keep something in mind. Blumhouse hasn't had a hit all year. I have mentioned this in other live streams, other watch parties, other versions of the Inquisition that I have come on screen on this microphone to speak on. Dude, you can only keep this up but for so long. And from what I remember, last year wasn't particularly great for them either. But as far as 2025, they thought that they were going to start the year off with Wolfman. Hey, remember how we made all that monies when it came to the Invisible Man? Well, them chickens done came home to roost because Wolfman sucked and underperformed, despite your micro budget. And then Woman in the Yard came out. Well, gee, if they can't handle a creature feature, what made anyone think that they'd be able to handle dark fantasy? They came out with some, I don't know if it was a slasher movie or what, called Drop. You probably don't even remember that came out this year. And then they thought that they were going to go the Terminator 2 route. Oh my God, they kept talking about that. As if a doll was, as if you were going to land a hit like Terminator 2 just because you say so, just because you're going to mimic that formula. Dude, what the hell were you people thinking? Well, your thinking got you this. And it's unfortunate that it took 6 people to lose their job. I'm not celebrating that, but I genuinely hope that this swift kick in their ass gives Blumhouse the rude awakening that they have been needing for years now, decades perhaps. You can't just keep resting on your laurels, as if you have any, and churning out slop. Not to mention that, but Megan 2 is obviously a flop. But to me, whenever something like this happens, I feel it necessary to ask, hey, was the original really that good? If this is what you ended up with? I think that's a fair question. I think that the original was a fluke. It made almost $100 million. It really wasn't that good. They probably thought that they would score. They thought that not only would they make as much as the original film, which is grotesquely overrated and, as I said, a fluke, they thought they were going to make even more money by catering to the masses going down the action route. Well, you get what you deserve.
Get what you fucking deserve!
I don't feel bad for them, and this was a very rude awakening for them, or at least I hope, because it could just very well could be the case that they dig their heels in, that they turn their pretentious noses up, that they don't learn the lesson of catering to niche markets, and they try to be sassy and all this crap, all this nonsense that they put into this film, the quippy Marvel type of humor. It was just a failure across the board. Do better, because you might just have people depending on you, like, your own staff. And again, my heart goes out to those 6 people that did lose their job, because they did so because of the creative negligence of upper management. Next is Clown in 4K. Clown in a Cornfield 4K will release on Blu-ray on September 16th, and I, for one, I absolutely cannot wait to get my hands on this Blu-ray. 2025 has not been a good year for horror. People will speak on Weapons, which I'll get to in a moment. People will speak on Sinners, neither of which I liked. I can at least acknowledge some level of merit when it came to Weapons. Sinners was grotesquely overrated, but Clown in a Cornfield was a much needed surprise for 2025. It wasn't a hit, it wasn't a sleeper hit, but it was still a good movie and it turned a profit. So I do hope for much more of it. It's one of the best movies of the year. To me, this was so much better than something like Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. Oof. And And this was the type of surprise that I like to see out of the genre. This is the type of, I don't want to say bare bones, but it's a smaller type of premise. There's creativity behind it. It was very entertaining. It wasn't scary by any means, because I mean, what slasher really honestly does scare people nowadays? But it was entertaining. I very much enjoyed it. I would like to see more of it. I like the characters in it, and which, God, if it's damn near an impossibility for a slasher movie to genuinely scare people, it's even rarer for these types of movies to be able to generate any type of intrigue with the cast, any type of affection or for the characters in front of you, because they're so cookie cutter quite often, and far too often. So I'm very much looking forward to this film releasing. I'll have more on this, as well as the A Nightmare on Elm Street 4K, in a dedicated video of physical releases that will be coming later in the week. And now we have Werwulf Casting news. So, this was a nice surprise that I heard, a nice news item that I heard earlier in the year. Usually when you hear about a film that is successful, you're bound to get news of a sequel nowadays, because studio greed is just something that can't be controlled. But this I actually did like. When I heard that Robert Eggers had an idea for not just another returning to the well more than once with another vampire film, when he let slip that he had an idea for a gothic werewolf film, I said to myself, hey, I'm all board. I'm all on board. The casting news that I was referring to refers to Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was in Nosferatu. He will be playing the wolf. He will be accompanied by fellow Nosferatu co-stars Willem Dafoe and Lily Rose Depp. Last I heard, they're also in talks to play roles in this upcoming werewolf film. Now, it'd be nice, I think, if they could get Anya Taylor-Joy to star. She was supposed to be in Nosferatu, and she was supposed to be the character that Lily Rose Depp played. And not to disparage Lily Rose Depp, but I do feel that Anya Taylor-Joy just has more screen presence than her. But Nosferatu wasn't the instant hit I was hoping for, but I trust Eggers. For all of this talk about how, we're in a period of enlightened horror, like just that people cringed over, and I'm so glad that there were people that came out and spoke out against this pretentious nonsense. So, of those people, Robert Eggers has always been mentioned, and I find him to be the one with the most talent. And I felt that way almost a decade going on now, ever since I saw The Witch, the first of his films I'd ever seen. So I trust him. I do think that there's talent there and creativity, and he wouldn't just be doing this just to capitalize off of the success that he got off of Nosferatu. I have to believe that he's coming with this with a genuine passion, actual talent, and that he has something good for us in store. And man, how long have we gone without a good or great werewolf movie? It's just, honestly, I would have to... Actually, no. There was one that came out that I watched. I did a film review of it. That was good. Unfortunately, not many people saw it, which is very unfortunate, because I very much enjoyed it. Let me see if I can remember what the name of it is. It was so long ago. And then we had a Wendigo movie called Antlers that came out just before the film that I have in mind. And I know who starred in it. I'm just trying to remember the specific name of it. The Cursed, that's what it was. But not a lot of people have seen that. I'm going to be doing a watch party of that pretty soon. But I mention all of this to say that my hope is that with his celebrity and with his talent, that Robert Eggers can finally deliver us a great, not a good, a great werewolf movie. Because my God, I feel like the genre is lesser than for not having as many werewolf films in it, let alone great ones. And one day I will go into, because I've made the list, I will go into ways to improve the werewolf genre that while the tools are right in front of us. You don't need obviously any genre needs innovation, but there have been werewolf films that have come out that are like close but no cigar, but that's a video for another time. Like I said, I trust Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. There were problems with characterization and pacing. I'm hoping that what he has in mind and what he has in store for us will be a new take. And when I say that, I mean an actual fresh approach to the werewolf mythology, not like that tripe that Blumhouse came out with earlier this year. Ooh. For our last story, we're going to be taking a detour to Raccoon City. So, here's another one. I briefly mentioned weapons earlier. So, speaking of nuance to lore, we have here that the Resident Evil movie director, for the reboot, mind you, he says that he won't stick to the game story. He says people will come for me online. That I didn't hear too much about. Any blowback from his announcement to go a different route or just go. I don't want to use nuance, but just go a slightly parallel route than the established lore. I'm completely fine with this, and bear something in mind. Paul W.S. Anderson, yes, I know, hold your groans, that Paul W.S. He said the same thing some 23 years ago. He spoke about how you don't want the film to be a shot for shot adaptation of the game, because people will see the scares and the scenes coming. And he was right. What was it? The Walking Dead video games would take their own characters and take their own plot development just slightly askew from the show. And it was the showrunner that would come out to say that the show is different from the comics, which is different from the games. And that's cool. I'm completely fine with that. And I have to believe that. Now, before I get to Zach Kreger, let's deal with Paul W.S. Anderson. Now, he said the right things, but obviously, after 6 movies, we saw that guy's eye for creative vision was about as finely tuned as his for mate selection. He was grotesquely untalented. He was not the man to pull this off. His film series got by on name value only, and the end product is something best left forgotten. They didn't even adapt any of these characters for the games. Think about that. They would never adapt any of what Paul Anderson dedicated to celluloid. They would never apply any of that into games. You find that a little odd? Yeah. Moving along. And getting back to Zach Kreger and his recent success that he's had this past summer, I wasn't crazy about Weapons, but it did get some buzz. It got a really good box office return, especially for an original film. Now, unlike Paul W.S. Anderson, Zach Kreger has some measure of talent, and it has been understood for a very long time that comics were outpacing video game adaptations, because video game adaptations, they weren't shown the respect that they should have been. And they had to go all the way back to the beginning with games like Sonic and adapting games like Mario Brothers and everything that came after. in order for that to be treated with any kind of regard, any type of intrigue, any type of box office. I mean, those, what was it? The Mario movie went on to make over $1 billion. Like, they had to go back after survival horror games had like a 20-year head start, which is, oh God. That was so bad for the genre. That was such an embarrassment. But the point is that at least now they're trying to get somebody with a style to him, someone who now is enjoying celebrity. You know, his name is getting out there because of this movie. So my hope is that this will help the direction. Obviously, this will help the storytelling, and this will bring something new to the lore that we haven't seen before, that we're not going to immediately predict, like the debut of a tyrant or a dog jumping through the window. And the other thing that had me worried about movie adaptations of these games is that we've had plenty of remakes lately of these familiar stories. We've had RE2, RE3, RE4. The next announcement for what is going to be the next RE remake is bound to be around the corner after they wrap things up with Requiem. So the problem is, you know, as these stories, yeah, it's great to relive and play these games with new mechanics, updated gameplay, and certainly updated visuals. The problem is that this also, you don't want an overlap with a game that you can, a remake of a game that you can play versus the remake of the game as a movie. You know what I mean? So you don't want it to become too familiar, because you run the risk of predictability. What's that phrase? Familiarity breeds contempt. So I'm absolutely all for this director, that he's going to adapt this game, obviously, but he's not going to stick too slavishly close to the lore. And I think that that's a good thing, so long as what it is, the deviations that he does make are new additions. Like, think of how we all knew how the first Resident Evil game played, and then the RE remake came out, and they started adding all these additions, like the Crimson Heads, like Lisa Trevor. You know what I mean? So as long as he is able to, from a pure horror movie director perspective, as long as what he's able to adds to the story, adds to the horror, and hell, you know, if he does a good enough job, it can be something that can serve as a companion piece to the lore that we know already in the survival horror realm, in the Resident Evil lore. And again, you have to keep in mind that these games, the Resident Evil games, they are already being remade like clockwork. We've been getting remakes since 2019, so that's what's going to be 7 years ago, but still, that just means that we've had 3 of these remakes come out. It's imperative that, first off, this finally land, and I'll get to Zach Kreger's adaptation, the importance for it to land. I'll get to that in a moment. But, you know, obviously we don't want another situation where he gives us a Resident Evil movie and then it's one and done, and then we have to wait X amount of years until they try again. You know what I mean? It's expected that they're going to want to make a Resident Evil 2 and 3 and 4, you know? But if that's going to be the case, you have to remember, once again, we've already played the remake of Resident Evil 2 and 3 and 4. So if he comes out and makes what's already too familiar, and fans will want for or clamor for him to be, you know, faithful adaptation of Nemesis and the Lickers and Wesker and all that, you got to be careful with that, because then you're burning the candle at both ends. You're getting just way too much of what you already know. So how impactful will it be, really, if you're expecting it, when you're seeing it coming? You know what I mean? So, to make too faithful of an adaptation can lead to storyline staleness. And that's not something that you want. I mean, keep something in mind. The franchise turns 30 next year, which is why they're on the gaming side, they're making a big push for this Resident Evil Requiem. As horror fans, though, as strictly horror movie fans, we've waited way too long already. I mean, 7 live action films. And keep in mind, we already had one reboot with Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. What was it, 4 years ago? And oof, man. Ugh. We can't go through another failure, another dud, just to wait X amount of years to try yet again. You can't treat this like it's Spider-Man, you know? And even a series this prolific and a fan base this faithful, they can only tolerate but so much disappointment. They absolutely have to nail this adaptation. I would say let me see. I would say there's about as much pressure on this movie landing, Resident Evil, as the upcoming Return to Silent Hill. Possibly more pressure on Return to Silent Hill because that's much more of a connoisseur type of franchise. And whereas Resident Evil is and always has been more mainstream, but you understand my point. After so many botched attempts, this movie got to land. It has to at this point. Especially since, like, back in the day, reading all of these articles about video game adaptations and how they were just so piss poor, they mentioned how, look, Warner Brothers, okay, Christopher Nolan came to Warner Brothers with his idea, but he was someone of talent, someone of some repute before, because he didn't just come out and make Batman Begins. He had several films under his belt by then, but prolific films, something that made an impact. My point is that for so long, they were just, God, how many directors were they getting that were just so bottom of the barrel? Paul W.S. Anderson, Uwe Boll. I mean, just a bunch of anybody like any gun for hire. Look at the most recent Resident Evil remake from Welcome to Raccoon City. I don't even remember the name of that director. And the list goes on. Who even knows who directed the Doom movie, for instance? The fact that Zach Kreger directed Barbarian, he's coming off a good success with Weapons. That's what momentum looks like. So here's hoping that he's able to deliver, that he's able to nail this, because again, I mentioned his adaptation, that horror fans have been waiting for this for 30 years. I gotta believe that even on the gaming side, gamers have wondered, Resident Evil is the most, bar none, is the most popular survival horror game ever, to the point that it coined the phrase survival horror for the rest of the genre. Even gamers have to be wondering, when are we going to get a proper adaptation of this series? Well, here's hoping. I genuinely, all our hopes lie in Return to Silent Hill, as well as Zach Kreger's Resident Evil, because it's like the third, in a certain manner, in a certain perspective, it's the third time up at bat for these franchises, because there have just been so many adaptations of video game movies, of survival horror, of these franchises. It is like, now that you have talent either fresh on the scene with Zach Kreger or returning to the scene, Christoph Gans with Return to Silent Hill, man, we need a win here out of these. Like, we can't keep doing one-offs, because they have to be able to prove that their level of talent, Christopher Gans and Zach Kreger, they have to wake people up, wake up studios, so that at the very least from the directing chair, they stop going for pennies on the dollar and getting guns for hire. No, you have to get talent behind the scene. That way they can deliver you something either faithful, something creative, and something that's going to get people talking, the fan base, the mainstream, bursting the bubble of whatever niche you're looking at. So I'm praying that these two are able to deliver. I don't know when Resident Evil is set to come out, because I don't think they've even started yet. I know that the year is going to open with Return to Silent Hill. So all hopes and prayers are with these two directors and their respective franchises. So 4K releases, red carpet, e-drama, studio shakeups, casting news, and story innovation. For me, not a bad haul for the end of summer. I hope that you all have enjoyed this coverage. Let me just get to a couple of other things before I close out. Let me discuss what is on the scene for the Mind's Eye Inquisition and the Greater Mind's Eye. So, this past Friday, I did a different Mind's Eye Inquisition episode. Smoke and Mirrors, Nia DaCosta's thoughts on Candyman's script that she wrote and how that backfired immediately. I also did a precaution and aftershock of The Conjuring Last Rites. So whenever I go out to the theater, I always do a preview before I head out and a reaction video upon my return. So hence the precaution and aftershock. So please be sure to take a look at those. I did a Scary Movie 25-year anniversary watch party on Labor Day. It's just a hysterical film, and I implore for you to watch it as well as my watch party, because my God, if you've ever wondered where humor went and how comedy completely evaporated within the last 25 years, there are jokes in that movie that absolutely could not be said today. Also, take a look at my Dexter Resurrection watch parties. I have done the full season, episodes 1 through 10. Now let's take a look at coming attractions. So, today I will be doing round 2 of the Withering Rooms live stream. This will be the game that I play all September long. I will be playing it on Mondays, even though my usual day to do live streams is on Tuesday. Unfortunately, Tuesdays this month are dedicated to Alien Earth. I will be doing my Alien Earth as well as Wednesday watch parties this Wednesday. Thursday will be a playthrough of the live, what is it? It's a interactive horror movie, but I guess it's a video game called Dead Reset. I'll be playing that on Thursday. Friday, I'm aiming to do a watch party of last year's hit film, The Substance. So you'll notice that I didn't mention tomorrow. Tomorrow just so happens to be what I refer to as my K9, which is my 5-year anniversary of beginning my YouTube career. So, to celebrate, at the beginning of Dexter Resurrection, I had remembered that I once did I wrote down a pitch of a video game for Dexter called Dexter's Inferno. So I'm going to be reading that off tomorrow, narrating my ideas that I had for that. So I hope that you'll join me. So once again, my schedule is my playthrough later tonight of Withering Rooms. I will be playing the for my K9, I will be doing a narration of Dexter's Inferno, what my pitch would be for a Dexter video game. Wednesday will be a double feature of Alien Earth as well as Wednesday. Thursday, I will play the live. What is it? The live. The interactive horror movie, which is really a video game, of Dead Reset, and then a watch party for The Substance. Therefore, why is the Mind's Eye Inquisition the place for heated debate? Because I ask the burning questions that inquiring minds want to know. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.